There comes a moment when the weight of your past no longer fits the shoulders you've grown into. You feel it. That subtle war between who you were and who you're becoming. The pull of old memories trying to convince you that change is betrayal, that you owe something to the pain, that the scars are debts unpaid. But listen closely, the past is not your sentence. It's not a cage. It's not a mirror meant to reflect back your limits. It is only a page, a chapter. And no chapter, no matter how dark or defining, deserves to dictate the entire narrative of your existence. Because you are not the mistakes you made when you didn't know better. You are not the reflection of the people who couldn't love you. You are not the echo of those who abandoned you when you were still learning to stand. What you are is unwritten, and that terrifies the world. The world worships predictability. It craves the comfort of labels, of statistics, of patterns that trap souls into neat little boxes. But you were not born to be contained. You were born to rupture the expectations of those who tried to measure your worth by your wounds. There is a fire in your breath the past cannot smother, a vision in your spirit no memory can erase. But first you must choose it. You must bury the myth that the person you were is the person you must remain. You must burn the mask of shame that tells you evolution is a form of disloyalty. Because the truth is this: letting go of who you were is not abandoning yourself. It is finally meeting yourself. Let the old story tremble in your wake. You've been imprisoned long enough by the idea that identity is static, that because you once played the role of the victim or the failure or the villain, you must always be confined to that role. But life is not a script, it's not a courtroom. It's a wild, unfolding, chaotic dance of possibility. And your past was only rehearsal. What comes next is real, but only if you dare to step out of the narrative you've rehearsed in your head. This is where the syphoria begins, that internal fracture between who you pretend to be and who your soul is screaming to become. It's why anxiety arises when you're quiet, why you feel restless in rooms where you're supposed to belong. Because deep down, you know, you were never meant to be this tamed. You were never meant to be this apologetic for your own power. You were never meant to shrink to make others comfortable in their delusions. You were born to unravel illusions, to disrupt, to carve a new psychological identity not built on trauma, but on transcendence. This is not rebellion for the sake of rebellion. This is psychological sovereignty. Carl Jung wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who your parents programmed, not who society rewarded, not who your past mistakes distorted, but the raw, electrifying, untamed essence that existed before the world handed you a mask and said, wear this if you want to survive. But survival is not the highest goal. You were not made merely to survive your story, you were made to rewrite it. Your mindset is the pen, and if that mindset is still bound to guilt, to resentment, to the gravitational pull of regret, then you're not writing, you're recycling. You are the author now. But authors must unlearn before they write anew. They must challenge the inherited beliefs that whisper, you're not enough. It's too late. You'll always be that broken version of yourself. Lies. Propaganda written by fear. And fear has no imagination. But you do. You have the ability to believe differently, think differently, see yourself not as a broken statue to be mourned, but as molten potential waiting for the fire of self-respect to reshape you. Because belief is not just mental, it's spiritual architecture. You build it brick by brick with every decision you make. And the first decision you must make is to stop defending a story that no longer honors you. Stop romanticizing your suffering. Stop quoting your failures as if they were scripture. The past is not sacred. It's not divine. It's not untouchable. It is only information. And information only becomes identity when you bow to it. Stand up. You are not your worst day. You are not your darkest thought. You are not the sum total of everything they did to you when you didn't have the power to fight back. You are the power now. So get clear. Clarity is a rebellion. It is cutting through the noise, the nostalgia, the neurotic obsession with who hurt who and when. Clarity is not about erasing the past. It's about refusing to let it obscure your future. It is stepping into the present and asking one terrifying question. Who am I without my pain? And the answer? You are whoever you dare to become. But dare is the key. Clarity without courage is paralysis. Vision without motion is hallucination. So see it clearly, the version of you who walks without shame, who speaks with gravity, who no longer asks for permission to exist. See them, then become them. Because vision is not a dream, it is a prophecy. But it will never come true if you keep watering the weeds of your former self. You have to be radical, not in noise, but in discipline. This is where most collapse. They wait for motivation to save them. But motivation is weak. It's a spark. Discipline is the flame. And if you don't learn how to burn for yourself, you will always beg others to light your way. Discipline is devotion. It's choosing what aligns with your future over what comforts your wounds. It's saying no when your old self wants to crawl back into the familiar. It's waking up with purpose, even when your mind is screaming for permission to stay the same. Because the real war is not external. It's not you versus them. It's you versus the version of you that wants to stay small. Kill that version. Let it die with dignity. Thank it for getting you here. But do not resurrect it. Do not mourn it. Do not make it holy. The only sacred thing now is forward. Forward into action. Into movement that reflects belief. Because action is the true alchemy. It transforms thought into embodiment, vision into reality. You cannot think your way into a new life. You must live it, bleed for it, grind for it, sacrifice for it. But don't you dare settle. You've already done that. Settled for mediocrity, for numbness, for identities you never chose. Not anymore. This is the uprising of your own becoming, of your own revolution. Not the kind that screams in the streets, the kind that whispers in your soul, relentless, volcanic, rising in silence until the mask cracks and the truth pours out. This is the kind of action that doesn't seek applause. It seeks alignment, a sacred union between who you are and what you do. No more pretending, no more performance. Because when you move in truth, the world begins to move around you. But first, you must face the truth you've been avoiding, the truth that your comfort zone is not safety. It is decay. It is the coffin where your potential goes to rot, quietly, politely, unnoticed by everyone except your own soul. And your soul is done whispering. It is roaring now. It wants gratitude, not as a forced affirmation, but as a primal recognition that you are still here breathing scarred but undefeated. That despite the hells you walked through, something inside you refused to die. Honor that. Gratitude is not weakness. It is fuel. It reminds you that every second you're alive, you are not your past. You are the architect of something that has never existed before, the next version of you. But architecture requires adaptability, the willingness to let go of blueprints that no longer make sense, to demolish structures built on fear, on ego, on inherited dysfunction. You were raised by people who were raised by people who were surviving their own psychological wars. Don't make their trauma your temple. Break the lineage of unconsciousness. Become the ancestor your bloodline has never known. The one who didn't just endure, but transmuted. But this path demands resilience, because the world doesn't celebrate your growth. Not at first. The world loved the broken version of you, the predictable version, The compliant, self-doubting, approval-chasing shell who made everyone else feel more secure in their own delusion. But the moment you rise, you become a threat to every friend who knew you as insecure, to every partner who needed you weak, to every environment that depended on your silence. They will try to pull you back, guilt you, gaslight you, say you've changed like it's a crime. Wear that accusation like a crown, because change is not betrayal. It is liberation. You're not responsible for who people thought you were. You're only responsible for who you choose to become now. Let them choke on their expectations. You have work to do. You have chapters to write that don't begin with, "Once upon a time I was broken." Because you are not a sob story. You are not a cautionary tale. You are a force. And this force learns not just information, but transformation. Learning how to unattach, how to rewire, how to recognize that the thoughts running through your mind are not divine commandments. They are echoes, programs, reflexes. Challenge them. Burn them if they lie. Because you cannot heal in a mind that believes your pain is who you are. You are not the trauma. You are the warrior who survived it. And now it's time to go beyond survival, into creation, into destiny, into that sacred space where your past bows to your future, where your wounds stop being identities and become instruments, where every scar becomes a signature not of what broke you, but of what built you, because this is your renaissance, not a return, but a resurrection, not a comeback, but a coronation. The world hasn't seen what you're about to become, because even you haven't met that version yet, but they're real, and they're waiting on the other side of your excuses. So let the old version of you grieve if it must, but don't you dare go back to mourn. The story has moved on, and so must you. This time, you move without looking back, not because the past doesn't matter, but because it no longer commands you. You move with the weight of 1,000 false identities falling off your back. You move with the quiet rage of someone who has finally realized their pain wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You move like the storm the world tried to suppress but couldn't destroy. You move like truth finally unleashed. This is what they never told you. The system doesn't care about your soul. It wants conformity, obedience, sedation. It wants you numb, scrolling, consuming, doubting, because a soul on fire cannot be managed. It cannot be monetized. It cannot be manipulated. But that's what you are now, a fire that refuses to be extinguished. And from that fire, purpose is forged. Not the cliche, not the Instagram version, not the watered-down dream board fantasy, real purpose. The kind that wakes you up in the middle of the night because you know you were not born just to pay bills and heal from what other people did to you. You were born to disrupt, to awaken, to leave fingerprints on the fabric of this reality. But you cannot do that if you're still asking for permission. Stop waiting for a sign, for an apology, for closure. You are the sign. You are the closure. You are the storm and the calm that follows. And yes, it will hurt. Growth always does. Real purpose will cost you everything that isn't real. It will sever your ties to mediocrity. It will excommunicate you from the religion of playing small. It will isolate you from the masses because the path to becoming cannot be crowded. But in that solitude, something sacred happens. You hear yourself for the first time, beneath the noise, beneath the trauma, beneath the expectations they buried you under. You hear the voice that never died. It only went quiet so you could survive. Now it wants more than survival. It wants revolution. And you are the battlefield. Your mind will rebel. Your body will resist. Your habits will try to seduce you back into comfort. But every time you choose alignment, over addiction, vision over validation, creation over consumption, you are winning the war. You are becoming the person your past never believed possible. Because you've stopped trying to fix the old you and started creating the new one. That's the secret. Healing isn't about returning to who you were before the pain. It's about building who you were always meant to be through the pain. The scar is the sculpture. The suffering was the forge. The betrayal was the unveiling. And now you rise. Not clean, not innocent, not untouched, but real. And real is what changes the world. Because nothing is more dangerous to a sick society than a person who has reclaimed their authenticity. Not polished, not filtered, not packaged for comfort, but raw, self-possessed, rooted in something deeper than opinion, trend, or fear. You become immune to manipulation when you no longer crave external validation. That's the true revolution, not louder voices, but freer souls. Souls that refuse to contort themselves into digestible versions of humanity. Souls that no longer apologize for existing in their full, unedited power. They cannot control a soul like that. They cannot sell it back its own worth. They cannot scare it with exile because it's already made peace with being alone if it means being real. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be unforgettable. And unforgettable begins when you start building your life on conviction instead of convenience. That means sacrifice. Not the tragic kind, the sacred kind. The kind that says no to temporary pleasures for the sake of permanent power. The kind that gives up comfort in exchange for character. The kind that knows discipline isn't restriction, it's reverence. Reverence for the future version of you that deserves a foundation, not just fragments. And yes, it will feel like death at times, because it is. You are dying to the lies, to the illusions, to the addiction of being understood by people who were never meant to understand you. You are dying to the stories that made you smaller, quieter, easier to digest. And from that death comes the rebirth. You've heard the phrase, the phoenix rises from the ashes. What they never said is that the fire is your own choosing, that no one lights that match for you. You burn when you're ready to become. But becoming is not pretty. It's not romantic. It's bloody. It's brutal. It's a spiritual exorcism of everything that no longer belongs. But it's worth it. Because on the other side of that death, you begin to recognize something holy. You were never broken. You were buried. And now the dirt is falling off. Now the roots are breaking through. Now the world has to reckon with a version of you that answers to no one but truth. And truth doesn't flinch. It doesn't stutter. It doesn't dilute itself to fit into the room. It walks in and shifts the frequency. That's you now. The frequency shift. The glitch in the matrix of mediocrity. The interruption to generational cycles of self-abandonment. But don't stop here. This is just the ignition. The purpose of fire is not to glow, it's to spread. So go. Ignite others. Not by preaching, not by persuading, by embodying. Let your life be the evidence that reinvention is not only possible, it's inevitable for those who choose it. And in that embodiment, you find the final truth. You never needed to be perfect. You only needed to be honest. And your honesty, your brutal, beautiful, untamed honesty is what will set you and everyone around you free. This is not the end. This is where your story truly begins. And this story, it won't be written in ink, but in blood, sweat, and every sacred choice to not betray yourself again. You are no longer the passenger in a vehicle driven by history. You are the architect of breath, of battle, of becoming, because here's the final fracture. The illusion that you are still the same person who first felt the wound. You're not. That version of you didn't know the strength hidden behind collapse. That version didn't know how much power there is in being broken open. But you know now. You've seen behind the curtain. You've met the demon in the mirror and you didn't run. You stared it down, unmoved, until it revealed the one thing it was hiding. Your fire. The same fire the world told you to tame. The same fire they shamed into silence. The same fire they labeled too much, too intense, too angry. Not because it was wrong, but because it was real. And what is real can't be controlled. It can only be confronted. That's what your life becomes now. A confrontation with mediocrity, with legacy, with every thought that tries to convince you that your role is to endure, not evolve. But you didn't come here to endure. You came here to ignite, to walk with the ghosts of your former selves and whisper, "Thank you for surviving, but I've got it from here." You came to transcend, not as some spiritual escape, but as a declaration that this moment is holy. This body is sacred, and this life, despite every scar, is still yours. Because power doesn't come from forgetting your past. It comes from owning it without being owned by it. You are not here to pretend the pain didn't happen. You are here to declare that it happened and you still rose. That is your legacy. Not the fall, not the failure, not the silence. The rising again and again and again until one day your name becomes a frequency. A story others tell when they need to remember who they are. You become the myth that reminds the wounded that they are still worthy. You become the moment the future changed, not because someone saved you, but because you saved yourself. And now, this is the moment where there's no turning back. No more tug of war between who you were and who is rising from within. No more mourning the masks you once wore just to be loved, accepted, allowed to exist. You don't need them anymore because you've remembered who you are. Not a victim, not a survivor, not a side character in someone else's script. You are the author rewriting fate in blood, tears, and an unshakable will. You are the living answer to generations buried in silence. You are the roar of a soul that refused to die quietly. Take one last look, not to return, but to smile at the one you used to be, the one who endured, who tolerated, who broke, but never truly surrendered. Then turn forward, where there are no paths, no templates, only you, raw, blazing, so real that the world won't know what to do with you. And walk, not for them, not to prove anything, but to live as the soul you were always meant to be. Because deep inside, it's been whispering all along. You've always been enough. Now go and become, close the old chapter, begin the legend.